Hey everybody, it's Jennifer Schaus here coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us in our Webinar Wednesday series. Today's webinar is going to be covering GSA schedules, but before we get started, we're going to go through a couple of quick slides. Our webinars are every Wednesday. They're obviously complimentary, and we will record all of the webinars, so today's session is being recorded. The recordings are typically posted on our YouTube channel, which you can get to from our website. There's a YouTube logo at the lower right-hand corner, and we will also post it on our website. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, so if you've got questions about today's presentation, our contact information will be on some of the slides. Okay, and as we move along here, we want to thank the National Veterans Small Business Coalition. They are a nonprofit trade association serving veterans in the federal marketplace. Great organization. They've got a couple chapters across the country. They also have an educational department which pulls in our webinars. So if you're a veteran or wanting to work with veterans, or you're selling services to veterans, I highly encourage you to jump on their website, check them out. Again, a great group of people providing a valuable business service. A little bit about us. We do provide professional services for companies, including product, service, and software firms that are selling to the federal government. Some of our services are listed here. Most services can be purchased a la carte. Some have a monthly retainer associated with them. Others are hourly, and others are project-based. So if you have questions about any of those, or you want a quotation for your company, please contact us directly. We've got a newsletter that goes out every Monday at 11 o'clock. It now reaches over 21,000 subscribers. This primarily includes government contractors. If you want pricing on our advertising, you can send us a note to the hello@jenniferschaus.com. Okay, and we're going to dig in today, as I mentioned, covering GSA schedules. The whole month of September, we are covering GSA schedules. Again, these are all complimentary webinars. They are recorded. The slides are on SlideShare, usually within slideshare.net, usually within 24 hours. And again, the recording is on YouTube as well as our website. Okay, so let's dig in here. The GSA schedule, is it the right tool? And we've got a quick agenda that I just want to run through, which first we're just going to do a quick introduction, touch on pricing and why it matters, why the schedule is used, and then helping you make a go, no-go decision, and then just some final remarks. Again, at the end of that, I'm not going to take any questions. If you've got questions, contact us directly. Okay, so the introduction, just a little bit about General Services Administration. They're a non-appropriated agency, meaning that they do not receive taxpayer-funded. They are self-funded through the GSA Schedules program as well as the PBS. So GSA is broken into PBS, which is the Public Building Services. So if you're selling any cleaning services or any type of real estate services, the GSA PBS folks would be the ones that you would talk to. This would be janitorial services they'd probably be purchasing, and other related services. The other half of GSA covers the contract vehicles, which is, again, the GSA schedule. And then if you ever go on to FPDS, which is the Federal Procurement Data System, or SAM.gov, or betasam.gov, or USA Spending, all of these are powered by GSA. So they do a lot. They collect a lot of data, and they provide a variety of different services. There's a shot there of their location here in DC, just around the corner. Okay, so the GSA schedule, it is only a contract vehicle, meaning it's a mechanism for the government to purchase from you. It's a marketing tool, meaning that it will potentially attract buyers and potentially attract customers. It's not going to secure a contract for you just on its own. You'll still need a human element, but it is a marketing tool. It is absolutely not required to sell to the federal government. Again, it's just a marketing tool. Some may refer to it as a feather in your cap or a ticket to the dance, meaning that, okay, you've made your way to the dance, but you're still going to need to find somebody to dance with. It's just an entry point into the government. And it is one of many, 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 many options that the government has when they decide that they want to make a purchase. It's only used about 10 to 15% of the time in federal purchases. Now, this is just generally overall speaking. So if you're selling a particular widget, whether it's product, service, software, you want to do some market analysis to understand, is the GSA being used for your particular solution 10% of the time, or maybe that number is actually 32% of the time. It's going to vary, but on average, this is across everything that's purchased in federal government. Again, it's only used about 10 to 15% of the time. So let me give you a visual here and give you some of the other options on how the government may decide to purchase as they spin the wheel. Full and open competition, and these are rough numbers, is going to be used about 35% of the time. These are going to be the opportunities that you see on FedBizOpps, which is now datasam.gov, where anybody with an internet connection that can read the RFP or RFQ is then able to respond. We've also got on here department and agency vehicles. This is going to be contract vehicles that are managed and run by a specific department or agency, and I'll give you a couple examples. NASA. NASA SEWP is the contract vehicle, SEWP, and these are all going to be acronyms that represent what the agency is purchasing. You've got Navy Seaport E. HHS has their own contract vehicle. OPM has their own contract vehicle, and pretty much every department does have their own. So before you decide to go down this path of, oh, let's get on the GSA schedule because GSA does a heck of a job marketing itself, but not specifically your specific solution, you want to make sure that you know exactly how the government purchases your specific solution. So GSA I put in there at about 12% set aside. This is going to be the government sets something aside for women-owned, veteran-owned, HUB-zone, 8A, Alaska Natives, and all the other designations. Simplified acquisition procedures, that's going to represent about 18%. Sole source comes in pretty small there, and this is going to be that there's only one solution on the planet, or there's some other justification why the government is not putting something out for bid. OTA, these are going to be non-FAR regulated purchases that are happening through DOD, Energy, and I believe HHS, if I'm not mistaken. And then these could be some other BPAs or IDIQs or other purchases that are kind of falling in through the government. So keep this in mind. It's a good visual to know that, again, GSA is one of many, and as we dig into GSA further, you'll understand why you may or perhaps may not want to go down the path. So you've got about roughly 20,000 companies that are on the GSA schedule, and more than half of them have zero sales through their schedule. Now, they may have a $5 million contract with, the Air Force or Department of Commerce, or insert whatever department or agency you want to here, but specifically through their GSA schedule is zero. And when you download some of this data, which is publicly available to see how the vendors are performing within your particular industry, it can be pretty eye-opening. And so roughly when you look at these numbers, it's kind of the 80-20 rule as I've got laid out here. The top 20% of the vendors have about 80% of the revenue. So how do you make sure that you're not one of the companies that has a zero? And we'll talk about that later. So why do these companies have zero next to their name, meaning $0 through their schedule? There are some organizations that are out there that will telemarket or send you emails that are designed to kind of look like perhaps they're coming from the government, trying to encourage you to get onto the schedule. Or the client or the vendor did not do enough, we'll say, reverse engineering or homework to understand who is their customer and how does your customer specifically like to purchase your specific solution. Some companies said, hey, let's just get on the schedule and then we'll start hunting, which is pretty much a failed strategy of they build it and they will come. Sometimes there's no strategy. They just say, oh, let's get the 8A certification. Oh, let's get the GSA schedule. Let's get them both, and our phone's going to be ringing off the hook. That doesn't really work, just throwing things up against the wall without having a plan and data behind it. And this industry is like no other, that there is so much public data out there that you'd be foolish just to not have a strategy or not make decisions based on having the information that's available to you. If you don't have customers in your pipeline that specifically want to purchase from you and specifically your solutions, specifically through the GSA schedule, then you're probably going to end up with 0 sales. Or you've got some unrealistic expectations that once you're on the schedule that your phone's going to be ringing and emails are going to be coming in from buyers, and suddenly it's going to be raining opportunities, and it doesn't quite work like that. Okay, the schedule also does come, it's a contract, so it's coming with terms and conditions, and it is 99.999% based on pricing, more specifically your lowest prices. You've also got to bring in at least $25,000 per year through your schedule. And what that means is, in that example that I mentioned earlier, there may be a company that has a $5 million contract with, let's just say, the Air Force, but if the Air Force is not buying through the schedule, then GSA does not care. So what they care about is that you bring in sales through your schedule. So again, make sure you know who is your customer and how do they purchase. They're also going to charge you, which is kind of a wash, but it's called the industrial funding fee, the IFF, again, industrial funding fee, it's spelled out there for you, which is 0.75% of your GSA schedule sales. So let's stick with the same example. You've got a company with a $5 million contract with the Air Force. It's not going through your schedule, so you do not owe GSA anything. If it was going through your schedule, then you would pay GSA 0.75% of that $5 million. The way that the fee works, though, it is actually built into your rates as they're negotiated with GSA. So the customer, in this scenario, the Air Force, would actually be paying that 0.75% to you, and then you pay that back to GSA. So keep that in mind, that it is more or less a wash, but it's an administrative burden. It's going to be the cost of doing business. You're going to need an accounting system and a human that's able to manage that process for you and ensure that you are being compliant and paying the IFFP each month or quarter, however you are set up. Okay, as I mentioned, pricing is the impetus of the GSA schedule. It's, again, primarily based on your lowest prices. So 2 things here. Number 1, GSA is going to they're going to seek to obtain better than or equal to your most favored customer pricing. Your most favored customer, you can also call that your lowest price customer. And it's not the favored customer is not who you like the best or the company that you think has a really cool logo. It's the customer that you've given your lowest prices to for each and every single line item. So if you're offering GSA 100 different line items, you may have potentially, it's not likely or realistic, but you may potentially have a different most favorite customer for each of those line items. So you'll have to identify that. It could be a category of customers. It could be a specific company or organization, and we'll get into that in a moment. GSA will then, after this internal test of who is your most favorite customer, the second litmus test is GSA will then compare your rates to the average GSA rates. Again, this is public data. Anybody with an internet connection can go to calc.gsa.gov and type in your labor category. Let's just use something generic like a project manager. Your project manager is going to have a specific number of years experience associated with that, as well as a specific educational requirement. So let's say your project manager has 5 years of experience and a bachelor's degree. You can plug that into the calc site and you'll come up with the GSA average rate. If the average GSA rate is coming up to, let's just say, showing up as $100.75, and your rate for that same exact 5 years of experience, bachelor's degree, project manager is $170, and you're not going to be able to afford to offer GSA a rate of $100, you may want to rethink the schedule. You can also search products, if you're a product company and on this call, or software on the GSAadvantage.gov site. Again, public data, do your homework before you decide to download the GSA solicitation and start responding to it. So do your homework first, then make an informed and intelligent decision based on data. So now let's just assume that you are on the schedule and the government, when they purchase from you, they're going to know that you've been vetted because there's a ton of paperwork that you complete to get onto the schedule. You're going to have to demonstrate that you've got past performance providing the same product or services or software, whatever it is that you are selling to GSA. Your prices have been pre-negotiated, and we just talked about that on the last slide. And the prices that you're offering GSA are your lowest. Again, you've been competed with the other GSA schedule holders. And again, they've done that litmus test by looking at the calc site, which again, you can also go to. So now you're showing that your prices are fair and reasonable. And where you disclose this information about your pricing is on probably the most important document in the proposal, which is called the Commercial Sales Practices document. It's a GSA form. It's available on the GSA website with a solicitation. You can go download it. I encourage you to do so. And what you'll disclose here are your internal pricing policies and discounts. So who is the customer that you give your best discounts to? How often do you give these discounts? Was this a one-time discount, or it's just part of your standard policies? And how big was the discount? Was it a 10% one-time discount, or was it a 25% discount that you always give to this customer? And basically, you'll have some, you can explain yourself here as far as your discounts. Are they standard or non-standard? And I'll talk about why that's important in just a moment. So number one, your standard discounts. These are going to be discounts that you offer, just it's part of your standard business practice. So if you are dealing with nonprofits and associations, you always give them a 10% discount. And that, again, is part of just your regular business practice. Then GSA will say, okay, then we want something that's better than that. So maybe you're going to offer them 11 to 12%, and then when you get to negotiations, perhaps they may ask you for 13% or something along those lines. So again, these are standard discounts, part of your regular business practices. And this is where GSA can more or less hold your feet to the fire and ask for something that's equal to or better than your standard discounts. The real trick here is disclosing also your non-standard discounts. So if you are perhaps a new business and just starting, and so in order to win business, maybe you've got an opportunity to be a subcontractor with insert whatever company, we'll just say ABC company. And the way that those relationships typically work is that the prime will offer the sub a rate and basically say, take it or leave it. And sometimes those are pretty steep discounts off of your rate. So if it is in the neighborhood of, let's just say here, 15%, and this was just a one-time discount, you typically are not charging this rate, you can argue with GSA, this was just a one-time spot discount in order to build our business, in order to win the business, but we typically do not charge this discount. And therefore, because you're showing that this is a non-standard discount, and hopefully here you have some invoices to show a rate that is for the same labor category or the same widget that is not showing the 15% discount, you can argue this, again, was just a one-time occurrence, and therefore you don't have to offer GSA that same lower discount. So these are considerations that you really want to look at long and hard and not just make a quick decision, yeah, let's get on the schedule because it's, we see the GSA logo everywhere and our competition is on the schedule, but maybe your competition is on the schedule and has zero sales. So the pricing is really going to be the crux of this. Okay. So you now have awarded rates with your labor categories, your software, your widget, your product, whatever it is. And your GSA rates are a not to exceed price. So when you look up on GSA Advantage or the calc site, somebody's rates, that is going to be, again, a price ceiling or a not to exceed price. So, and I've got the asterisk here that says this is also going to affect your commercial prices as you go down the path of getting onto the GSA schedule and being a GSA schedule holder. In the event that you're a company that's doing business with a lot of different verticals, meaning you're selling to federal, maybe you're selling to state and local, you're selling to commercial companies, the GSA schedule can potentially be a risky situation for you, because if you are a large organization that has sales reps all over the country and perhaps all over the world, and those guys are out there giving quotations and they have no idea that you have a GSA schedule or what those rates are, and they're offering rates below that, this could jeopardize your company. And we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. But the important point here is that your GSA rates are a price ceiling. So, again, they're going to be more or less your lowest rates. So, and once you're on the schedule with these low rates, as you start bidding for contracts through your schedule, you're more or less encouraged to give discounts off of your GSA rates. So if your GSA rate is $100 for this program manager and you've got an opportunity to bid for some work at Department of Commerce or whoever the agency is, you're probably going to come in at a rate of $98 or something along those lines, because you know that the average rate, perhaps there's going to be other companies that are bidding as well through the schedule. You want to be competitive, so you're going to go lower. And I was not an econ major. I did not do well in econ in college, but I did learn, and it's, I think, just the basics here. With low margins, you're going to need heavy volume. And what does that mean? That you're going to need a lot of customers or a lot of, significant sales in order to be profitable with lower rates. And you want to make sure with lower rates that you're hiring good people, because the last thing you want to do is go through all this effort, time, cost, and everything that's involved in winning the contract to then be a bad performer on the contract. So if you've got to hire somebody that you're only paying them X amount of dollars, do you really think they're going to deliver quality work? So keep those business pieces in mind as you decide whether or not the schedule is the right fit for you, but more importantly, is the schedule the right fit for how your ideal customer purchases. Make sure you've got a decent pipeline of opportunities. So within your GSA schedule, just to kind of clarify the pricing, you are encouraged to offer discounts. So if somebody is purchasing from you through your schedule, you can give them discounts. It's encouraged. Outside of your schedule, you cannot go below GSA rates. And this is where I gave the example of if you've got sales reps across the country who are just writing quotations and giving various discounts and have no idea that your company is even on the schedule, you want to make sure that those folks are educated and know that they are not allowed to quote or even give anybody a rate below your GSA schedule rates. If so, bells and whistles and smoke should be coming out of your accounting system because you have then violated the price reduction clause. And you can Google that to find some cases of companies that have then owed GSA thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if anybody has questions on that, please shoot an email or give us a call afterwards. So with all this, low price, low margins, it's competitive, hardly anybody on the schedule is really bringing in any revenue. It's really just the top 10%. Why is the schedule even used? So on the government side, it makes it much easier for them to purchase from you because it's going to eliminate a lot of the paperwork that they would normally put into a solicitation to vet that you've got the past performance, to ensure that you're financially stable, to negotiate your rates. All of that is done up front with GSA. So you've more or less, we'll say, been cleared with GSA, and then the government, all the agencies or departments are able to purchase from you through the schedule, and up to certain dollar thresholds are not going to require 3 bids. They can make a direct purchase through your schedule because you've already been, quote unquote, checked out. It's also a status symbol, and sometimes it's, somebody else has the schedule that's you view as a competitor, so you just blindly say, yeah, let's get on the schedule too, without even knowing that they have $1 or $0 or $1 million through their schedule, and you can look that information up very easily. GSA does a heck of a job marketing itself, and it is easy to use for the federal government, state and local governments, and some quasi government entities, including the Red Cross, the World Bank, the IMF, the IFC, the UN, also have the ability to purchase off the schedule. So if you dip into any of those markets, that could be helpful for them. Okay, so making a go or no-go decision, and this may vary. In January, you guys may look at, the beginning of the year, you're deciding, should we get on the schedule, but then perhaps something changes a couple of weeks, a couple of days, a couple of months, a couple of years later. So you probably want to reevaluate this based on what's in your pipeline, again, using hard data and intelligence and facts to make those decisions. So some things that we've seen as far as companies that we've worked with over the last, 20 years now, companies that have been successful in using the schedule, they typically have anywhere from 3 to 4 years of federal government contracting experience. And this could be as a direct awardee of a contract. They could be a subcontractor or even a sub to a sub, which would be a second tier subcontractor. So someone that knows the lingo, that has been to the networking events, that knows the acronyms, that knows how to kind of navigate the maze, that understands that GSA is one of many, many, many contract vehicles and choices that are out there to the government. You also want to make sure that you've got a pipeline of opportunities that are specific to your company, that are specific to your solution, and specific to GSA. So if we go back to that pie chart in your pipeline, what is the preferred method of procurement, or how is it that your customer prefers to purchase? You also then want to make sure that you're conducting market research on rates. I also should have neglected to put in the GSAadvantage.gov website again, but the calc site will take you to rates for labor, and then the GSAadvantage.gov, you can look up software pricing as well as product pricing. Do that research before you go down the path, because the worst thing to do is to wait the 6 to however many months it is for GSA to look at your proposal, only to find that they're going to negotiate your $170.50 rate for your program manager down to a rate of $98. And you're so anxious just to get on the schedule, you say yes. And now suddenly you're bleeding. Your company is not making money. So be sure, again, to make informed decisions. Timing. It's going to take about, as I alluded to in the last slide, 6 to 12 months to get onto the schedule. That includes the proposal preparation, getting some questions, Q&A sessions back from GSA, going through the negotiations through to the award. And then you've got opportunities, which these are going to be, once you're on the schedule, you'll then be receiving the GSA e-buy notifications. And if that is the only reason you're getting onto the schedule and you think that's going to be your ticket to winning contracts, that's not how it works. Those notifications, again, are going to be RFPs, RFQs, even sometimes RFIs for your specific offering. And that's going to be going to the hundreds of other companies that are also offering something similar to you. These notifications, just like what you see on FedBizOps, which obviously is now the Beta SAM site, it's just like that, where most of those opportunities have been worked. There is a relationship. There's a sales process in place. The GSA schedule is really just a smaller competitive pool. So instead of anyone with an internet connection able to respond to the FedBizOps betasam.gov opportunities, the GSA schedule is, again, really just a vendor shortlist. So the government folks know that, again, you've been vetted, your prices are low, and so let's see who within these 700 companies for this specific offering want to bid on this RFP. There has been a relationship in there. Somebody has worked that and probably gotten something in the technical requirements and that statement of work, and the specific technical capabilities that map back to at least probably 1 or 2 companies. So if you see these opportunities, again, there's a relationship most likely in place, and that's, again, what you're going to need to do. Okay, also of importance is having a full-time human, and this is not one person wearing many hats. This is a one human being, if not more, a sales rep that knows your solution, that understands government and understands how to push opportunities through the GSA schedule, and is not just going to look at it as being receiving opportunities, but really pushing opportunities through the schedule. As I mentioned, obviously pricing is the most important part, and so you're going to need somebody to be part of your team as far as compliance, administration. GSA conducts audits that they call customer assisted visits. Sometimes you'll hear the acronym CAV, C-A-V, again, customer assisted visits. And again, that's going to involve a human being, probably somebody from your accounting, finance, or if you do have contract administration folks, depending upon your company size, they will be involved in this portion of being a GSA schedule holder. So it's reporting, paying that industrial funding fee, that 0.75%, making sure that you're not violating any pricing issues, and just staying up to date and educated. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, oh, we're on the schedule and our phone's going to start ringing with orders. Again, it does not work that way. So some final remarks. The schedule is, you've probably understood from today's presentation, it's not a silver bullet. It's obviously not for everybody. It's not for the probably the bulk of the companies that are on it because they don't have any sales through the schedule. It is absolutely not required. Again, it's really just a feather in your cap. It's a ticket to the dance, but you're still going to need people to dance with. And it's going to take time. So you want to strike a balance between your business development and marketing, as well as getting on the schedule, because it's not going to be the situation where you decide on Monday to get on the schedule, you fill out the application on Tuesday or write the proposal on Tuesday, and by Wednesday you're on the schedule. We're talking months. So leverage the data that is out there that you are privy to, because there's so much public information on the various websites, which obviously are all being consolidated into the sam.gov site. Use that data to make informed decisions and go back to that pie chart and how many of, as far as your specific services or products or software, what are those percentages on that pie chart? What's going through the schedule for your specific product? What's going full and open competition? If it's showing more full and open competition, maybe you want to hire a sales rep and proposal writers versus getting onto the schedule, and maybe use that as a secondary tool down the line. So again, use the data that's out there. GSA Schedule is one of many, many, many contract vehicles. And this last slide is just saying, to, again, understand who your customer is and how they prefer to purchase. If you don't know that answer, then you don't know your customer and you're being reactive and not proactive. So use the data to be proactive and make decisions that will give you return on your investments. You can certainly put the schedule together yourself. We offer it as a service. There's plenty of law firms, even accounting firms and bandits out there willing to take your money and help you get onto the schedule. But I think before you make that decision, you need to know that it's going to work for you. And that's how Joe Smith at the Navy purchases your specific widget. Again, if you can't say that with 100% certainty, then this is probably not the right path for you at this particular time. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. The recording will be, as I mentioned earlier, on our website, usually within about 24 hours, and same thing on our YouTube channel. It's posted there. The slides will show up on slideshare.net, and you can find links to all of these on our website. In the whole month, we are covering GSA schedules. This Friday, we are covering supply schedules via the FAR. So if you are interested in GSA schedules, you probably want to tune into our FAR webinar, which is this Friday at 12 o'clock. I believe Tony Anakeef is going to be presenting on that. But I want to thank everybody again, and if you have any questions, send us an email to the hello@jennifershouse. Thanks, and have a good rest of your day.